Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 944 of our daily content, and today we have a bit of an odd thing to discuss because this has brought up a lot of conversation in the fandom. This came up a couple days ago, but this has been this has actually been a thing for a while now. So we have the return of John Warden to the Transformer brand. So, according to his LinkedIn profile, he has rejoined the Transformers team that he had previously left around the time Kingdom came out in order to focus more on the Power Ranger brand. Well, now he's back in charge of Transformers and G.I. Joe. So, John Warden has been around since he's been around Transformers for a while, since Age of Extinction and the Thrilling 30 line. It's a very long tenure, and for a long time he was the overseer of everything that happened in Transformers in general. So his return has been kind of met with mixed response, to say the least. So we're just going to take a look at everything overall. So like I said, he starts with the Thrilling 30 line, where the toys we know he had his hands on were essentially just favorites of his, so like the Leader Jetfire toy, Roadbuster and Whirl are some of his favorites. He made sure they had toys in Thrilling 30. And then Skybite, he also had his hands on. I'm highlighting Skybite because it's one of the very, very few non-G1 characters that Warden worked on in any way, shape, or form. Something that he is kind of infamous for is the fact that during his tenure under Transformers, we got very, very little in the way of non-Generation 1 stuff. His work seemed to primarily focus on legacy G1 characters and the real core characters, nothing, very rarely going outside the first 3 years or so. So there's a little bit of concern with him coming back that is something that's going to continue. Now, granted, we got some good toys during his run. He had his hands on Ultra Magnus here, for instance, which is still my go-to Ultra Magnus if I just feel like messing with an Ultra Magnus. So he's done good things, but again, mostly in the Generation 1 realm. This is IDW. He brought a lot of IDW to the toy line. I thought that was a good idea because the comic book stuff really doesn't get as much representation as it should. Precious little born from IDW ended up under the toy, ended up in the toy aisles. I never got my IDW Rodimus, I'm just saying. But it's pretty much how his run was known for. Now, every now and then, something non-G1 would work its way in. And sometimes it was odd. I'm not sure anyone generally agreed with this take on Armada Megatron. Yeah. So it's things like that. So there is a lot of concern. There's a lot of concern that he's just going to take us all the way back to just all Generation 1 all the time, at a time when the fandom is kind of tired of G1, and we kind of want some new things kicking about. So to look a little bit more into the guy, let's see some of the favorite toys that he has done, and the ones that he personally thinks are the favorite toys that he's put his hands on. And one of those is Combiner War Devastator, a toy that is known in the fandom to have issues. If you start asking around, this is not a popular iteration of Devastator, particularly things like how out of proportion Long Haul is with his sumo body and tiny arms, missing basic points of articulation, presumed cheapness to the overall design, lack of accessories as well. So it's, yeah, and this is what he calls one of his favorites. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I can definitely see why there's people in the fandom that really wouldn't like the figure and think that it could have been better. Even Takara made those little adjustments to improve the articulation. They made sure everyone had their guns. So yeah, when he says that's one of the favorite ones he's done, there's a little bit of concern. He also worked on Unicron. This was like his magnum opus before he left, like the overseeing of Unicron and its overall release. Okay, fine. Okay, so he took the lead on the first ever, Transformers HasLab, and it was a successful HasLab. We think. There's always been a little bit of weird controversy with Unicron, just because it seemed like it was going to come well short of its backer goal. They extended the deadline to give people more time to order, and then it seemed like overnight it had gone. Overnight it had gone from 1,500 orders short to over 8,000, and no one's really sure where those numbers came from. So maybe it's fudged, maybe it's not. We're not really entirely sure. But it is another toy that does have some contention in the fandom because it's kind of a shell former. And when it's, a $575 figure and the biggest Transformer of all time, there's a lot of people who are going to be put off by the fact that so much of that planet mode just kind of folds up into this plastic lasagna that you smash into the leg. Now, I can see the argument, but I also don't mind how it looks. And I think the planet mode's gorgeous. So I'm going to take it as a win overall. But again, I'm bringing this up just to make everyone aware of the things that might be concerning. The repetitiveness of the Generation 1 run. The fact that his favorite toys he's worked on are kind of contentious. But there's a lot of good stuff. I want to focus on some of the good. I don't want just to be a hit piece on the guy, because he still ultimately spent a good chunk of his career bringing us good Transformers stuff. He's the one who started off the Commander run. And I think the Commander class has been one of the most consistent size classes for good figures we've ever had. At this point, if a new Commander toy is released, I am at the point where I will pick it up and enjoy, and just out of, even as a character I'm only passively interested in, because I know it's going to be a banger. And that starts with, Siege Jetfire, which is a really good toy and, a very size accurate depiction of the character, which we had never gotten before. And of course, screen accurate. It actually looks like Skyfire. And again, a toy he led the design on because it's one of his babies. He did work on the Age of Extinction, or the Last Night line. Age of Extinction, I think he worked on a lot of the gimmick stuff, but this he worked on the Premier series. That toy line is kind of hit and miss. You've got the dragons, which are kind of meh, especially once you get to some of the bigger ones. But the Megatron's always been well received. The Megatron's always been cited as some of the better movie toys that Megatron's ever had. So that's a hit and miss line. Okay, so I didn't mind it so much. There's some figures that are fun, I think. He did the Grimlocks, and the leader Grimlock is weird because it's a very elongated T-Rex. I happen to really like the Voyager Grimlock. I think I still have the Dark Nemesis version somewhere that I really should dig up, because I think it is a cool toy. And things like that. There are, so there's a good portfolio there. And while he did do things in the Generations line leading up to it, it was really the Prime War trilogy where he really took charge, and we know for fact he handled a lot of the toys in that run. So that's kind of where we can really gauge just how things were going and where the focus is. This was the gimmick run for Transformers. We got combiners. Everyone was a combiner. That was the thing. For the first part of Prime Wars. And you know what? It scratched off so many things. It ticked so many boxes that we hadn't been able to tick before, because Hasbro wasn't willing to go to combining. We know from the past, before Warden became involved heavily in the design and the planning of the Transformers brand, We know that Hasbro was extremely hesitant to do combiners. We can't release them all at once. It'll take up most of the year's toys, or like it'll consume the waves, or it's not going to sell very well, especially the ones that are all colored alike, like your Predacons and your like aerial bots, your not Stunticons, but Constructicons. There was a lot of internal concern like that. Just a lot of things that made them very weird about, should we do combiners again or not? You remember Power Core Combiner? That was pre-Warden Hasbro going, maybe we can do some kind of combiner again. We'll use this to test the waters. And then they made one of the worst runs of toys they've ever made. Just saying. But generally, I thought the Combiner Wars were pretty good. Outside of the fact they got very repetitive after a while, just way too many repaints and retools, and very unnecessary, like 84 cast done as combiners. But, all fun, all just kind of fun and games. And while I know there's some in here like Menasor that didn't really hit the mark, we're replacing some of those now. I don't think all of them are necessarily bad. Again, hit and miss. Make your arguments for Breakdown and Brawl not really being up to par. But, overall, I don't think Combiner Wars was all that bad. And then it's followed by his run on Titan's Return, which I think is one of the better modern Transformer lines. There's a lot of playability in the Titan's Return line. I love the fact that every Voyager was a triple changer. That's a lot of play value. I like the head swapping. I like the alternate heads that became available with extra little weapon things. Individually as toys, meh. As like fun little accessory pieces to your larger figures, all right, we have some play value here. The fact that, there's little spots for multiple power, or Titan Masters to mount and ride these vehicles. Play value. And again, it ticked a box we never thought we were going to get ticked. We had a whole the third party basically came up because Hasbro kept saying they weren't doing combiners, so companies started making their own combiners. So this was kind of them checking the box on all the things they said they weren't going to do before. We weren't going to get Headmasters anymore because they didn't want, they knew kids would just start losing the heads. But now we have Titan Masters, and we got to have all those old Headmaster characters back. That's the Warden run. And this was a really, really good run of toys. I really, really liked Titan's Return. And then we did Power of the Primes, and we went off the rails a little bit. It's a short line. We're back to being repetitive with some remolds from the previous run, some other combiner molds that don't really stack up. But it's also intermixed with some really, really good stuff. We got our first full team of Dinobots in forever. We got an Optimus Prime that you see on screen here that was a phenomenally fun Optimus Prime to play with. A little bit jank in vehicle mode, don't get me wrong. But overall, I thought it was a really fun figure. You follow it up with a Rodimus Prime that is, again, I believe, a fun but flawed figure. So it's a mixed bag. And then you had that weird Prime Master thing that I don't think anyone ever liked. The cute the Pretender shells, the tiny Pretender shells were kind of cute, but like really, you're really forcing it there. Now, he was still in charge of the Transformer brand when it got into Siege and Earthrise. But at that time, we can't really trace nearly as much of what he had his hands directly on. So it's just little things here and there. But still, when you see him working, he's almost always connected to the Generation 1 cast of everything. You will notice in the trilogy that I just described, it's pretty much all G1. It's just solid block of Generation 1 and nothing else, which is where the concern draws from. Now, he was in charge and did have his hands on the Kingdom line before he left, so he did approve the Beast Wars coming back. So it's not all doom and gloom. Don't immediately assume that we're going to go straight back into nothing but Generation 1, okay? I think those fears are a little bit unfounded. I should probably have led with that now that I think about it, but we're going to do it here. We're going to say it here. I don't think it's necessarily going to be as terrible as we fear, you know? There's a few reasons for that, too. There are a few reasons for that. So, number one, we're in a little bit of a renaissance when it comes to non-G1 stuff. We're branching out in different directions, and it seems like it's, for the most part, well received. The stuff that hasn't been well received are the things where they try to cram G1 aesthetics into characters where it doesn't belong. That's your legacy Bulkhead and RC, where people just prefer them to be the original design. Okay? You know, when they corrected that into like animated Optimus Prime, we got, here, I got him right here. I have him right here. We got an absolutely fantastic Optimus Prime toy. And we're kind of in a weird renaissance of, you know, we've had a really cool run of Optimus Prime toys in a row that are that have nothing to do with Generation 1. We got the animated, we got the gamer edition, we got Armada, and all of three of those are fantastic. You know? And that's great. And, you know, and I don't think they're going to just ignore that. You know, we have new toys coming out now. Cybertron Starscream, not a trace of G1 redesign to him. This is a phenomenal figure. He's a fantastic toy. You know, and then we get weird things. Rescue Bot Chase, you know, we're stretching outside of the usual bubble. And it seems to go over really well when it does. You know, when it comes to G1, we either have the characters we always get, or just like the leftovers that, you know, are just very obscure and we just don't really we want them because it's a gap to fill, you know, not because they're like a huge character that we fell in love with. Oh my god, I really need to get the new Windshear toy. You know, you get my point. You get my point. So I don't think they're going to steer away from that just because there's so much good in Generation 1 in non-Generation 1 stuff right now. And I think that Hasbro, like, there's got to be people telling them, hey, like, this is working. We don't really want to steer away from this yet. We do know that according to our computer listings and leaks, the next year is going to focus on the 13 primes. It doesn't seem to have the Izers. It does seem to carry like a bit of a risk because it is the 13 are not a G1 concept. Even if they cram an Alpha Trion in there, it's not a G1 concept. But it does kind of force the hand. So we know in order to get all of those out, we're going to need some G1 molds to come out. We expect we know the aerial bots are coming out. I expect the Combaticons to come out. I expect them to intermix so we can get Nexus Prime in year 3. I've made that prediction before. I'll keep making that prediction. So it does kind of force the direction for the next 3 years. So Warden's not going to have like total hands-on and be like really restrictive over the next few years. We're still going to have this branching out. Beyond that, who knows? He might not even still be around in 3 years. He might leave again for another brand. We don't know. But I do think there's alarm bells going off that really aren't necessary right now. I think we're going to be fine for a while. I think we're going to get stuff that is definitely not Generation 1 centric. I think we're still in line to get some stuff that's fresh. So everyone calm down. Warden coming back does not mean everything is going to go back to Generation 1. We know this. It's just how it's going. I think the real thing you need to worry about is this means no one's in charge of Power Rangers anymore. Now, we basically know, because there's been no solicitations, no listings, no nothing, that basically the Power Ranger franchise is completely on ice at the moment. You know, if you look on Hasbro Pulse, the only things they're really pushing are from partners, you know, Ultimates and 3H and etc. So, yeah, Hasbro is just burying Power Rangers right now. And the fact they took the lead guy off of there and moved him into Transformers again is kind of like, you know, the indication that like, okay, that brand is dead, at least for now, because it needs a major overhaul before it comes back. Then again, the last run of Power Rangers was not very well known for its toy quality. So maybe that is a little bit bigger point of concern that people need to have rather than, oh my god, it's going to be all G1. Let's just hope that now that he's home, he's with familiar territory, that it's going, it should be fine. It should be fine. So I just wanted to talk about that because it's riled up a lot of conversation. I think it's riled up a lot of uncalled for hysteria. So for now, I think we're okay. I don't think we need to hit any panic buttons. I don't think we need to be too alarmed. This is a wait and see situation. For now, I take solace in that someone that's familiar with the Transformer line and maybe knows how to, maybe between his need to make Generation 1 toys can balance with the general lack of focus that Generations has right now and find some happy little medium where it kind of intermingles and makes a little bit more sense than it currently does. I'm also going to point out, under Warden, we had a lot more gimmicky stuff that was a lot more fun to play with. And we didn't have dumb battle damage stuff. So there's where I'm kind of like, there's kind of where I'm where my brain is right now. So it's a wait and see. Just let me know in the comments below. Please don't start arguments over this. Please don't start dooming and glooming, because this is just a big thing for Transformers to get this guy back. I'm just bringing it to attention that it's probably not going to be as bad as everyone's screaming about. But we will have to wait and see. So, until then, thank you everyone for watching. I will see you next time.